Tapestry weaves together the threads of our struggles and doubts, curiosities, our faith, our joys and hopes to create meaningful conversations that matter. You know those late night conversations that go unexpectedly deep? That's what we want to capture with the Tapestry podcast. And we want everyone to jump in the conversation. Because when we are heard and valued, we can begin to believe we are loved. Welcome to the Tapestry podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Tapestry podcast. We've been talking about anxiety here for the last couple episodes. In this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about maybe some things that can help. And so let's get started. My name is Mike, and I'm here with my friend Reb.
Hi.
And my friend Mikayla.
Hello.
And yeah, let's talk about some things that help. I'm especially interested in things that intersect with spirituality and faith, but certainly not only that, because as we mentioned in, I think, the first episode on this, there are some faith communities that have said it's only the spiritual things, only the faith things can help. And I think that is false. So if you're part of a faith community or have been part of a faith community that says that you just need to pray more or have more faith or something, I think that is untrue and unhelpful and unhealthy. So let's talk about some things, maybe some spiritual practices, some practical practices, I don't know, psychological practices that can help with this. Yeah, let's start there.
Well, I can start. I think, when I'm working with clients and myself, I like to start at kind of the basics. And what I would call the basics are, I know this kind of eye roll, you can go ahead and roll your eyes, but it really is important. The food that we eat and yes, thank you, Mike. That's a good eye roll. But the food that we eat and the movement of our bodies is a really, it's a great first step for addressing almost any mental health struggle on a light level. Okay. I think that's where I always want to start is kind of like, okay, what are we eating? What's our movement? And also things like sleep. Are you getting enough sleep at night? That can be a major component. So I like, from a therapist perspective, I like to look at those things first because those are kind of just the basics, right? And from there, from a therapeutic clinical perspective, I definitely get into like some tools like breathing exercises and mindfulness practices and meditation. And this definitely has some crossover with spiritual practices as well. Yeah. That's my starting point. I can go on, or you guys can chime in also.
Well, I mean, if you got, and once you have more, I mean, it's gonna interweave like a tapestry.
Ooh.
Did you see what I did there?
You said the name.
What? How about you, Mikayla? What are some things that have helped you?
I am a talker. I like to talk a lot. So talking about things that give me anxiety or my fears a lot and repeating it multiple times in a row. When I was in therapy more often, my therapist one time, I brought up a situation to her from my life. She said to me, "Did you know that that's the third time you've brought that up to me this month?" No idea. Had no clue. Mm-hmm. I had no idea that I had told her that 3 times already. But because I process things through speaking and through repetitive talking, I've learned that helps me most of all is just repeating the same incident over and over and over again until I feel resolved about it or enough to just let it go.
That's good.
That is good.
Reb, you mentioned getting the right kind of sleep, right amount of sleep. When the pandemic hit, when COVID-19, before it was even called that, I think a lot of us had trouble sleeping, right? Mm-hmm. Just kind of low level or maybe in high level anxiety going on for all of us.
Collective.
And so I started
Like there was a collective anxiety. That was a unique, I mean, this happens in other times in history also, but there was a collective anxiety around COVID-19, certainly.
Yeah. Global.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In a way that, is very unusual. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that really helped me was, I've now heard it called sleep hygiene, which I think is pretty great.
Word.
But I developed just kind of like a routine that involved some movement, that involved the basic, like taking care of yourself kinds of things, like take out my contacts instead of leaving them in when I go to bed, brushing my teeth, things like that. And some stretching and some actually kind of like a chant kind of prayer, like a prayer that went along with my movements, that I feel like I should get back into, and I feel so silly for not doing it. It doesn't take long, and it's a really good way to end the day, kind of bring it to a close. It tells my mind, tells my body, okay, it's time to go to bed now. These are the things, I'm doing the things before I lay down. So that has helped me for sure. You mentioned breathing exercises. I remember one time it was, I think finals have been going on. And so, a lot of studying, a lot of trying to be ready for stuff. I was playing a lot of music. I play the guitar and some other instruments, but I was playing guitar like a lot more than usual. And it was actually my mom who noticed it, and she said, "Are you stressed out?" And I was like, "Yeah, I think I am, actually." She's like, "You've been playing music a lot more." I think that's probably a pretty good coping strategy, right? For dealing with stress, dealing with anxiety. Music. Listen to it, maybe especially the kind that doesn't provoke more anxiety. Play music. If you're a musician, play music. Because you mentioned hobbies, Mikayla, in I think a previous episode. This idea that like a thing that you love, a thing that you enjoy doing, a thing that kind of brings you life, do the thing. Don't put it off until tomorrow. Find a way to squeeze it into your schedule if you have to. I think there are things that we will naturally or almost accidentally end up doing that can take up a lot of time. My wife, Heidi, hi Heidi, calls it being sometimes distracted by foolishness. Like if I'm just kind of like scrolling on this thing, right? Just like, I could totally be in the garage tinkering with something instead, right? Like could be doing something that feeds my soul rather than drains it. Mm-hmm. So I think when I've been feeling more nervous or more anxious about things, I find it more vital than usual to exercise, to have something in my day where I'm moving, especially outside for me. Those have been really helpful for me.
Nice. It's funny that you say the guitar thing because I was recently reading a book, and I might mix this up a little bit because I'm not a neuroscientist, but it was talking about how like anxiety actually tends to live more in our left brain, I think, because the left hemisphere of our brain is where more of our like analysis and that kind of like thinking goes on, whereas the right side of our brain is where we hold more of the creativity and that kind of part of our brain. And so actually things like music, anything that's kind of creative, whether it's music or painting or anything creative, building something, can actually really help with anxiety because you're kind of transitioning your brain to a less analytical, less likely to spiral or go down all the stairs kind of area.
Yeah.
I'm a huge proponent of that.
That's really good. Were you reading Oliver Sacks?
No, I was reading
somebody else. Okay.
Martha Beck, I think is
okay.
Beyond Anxiety is her book. It's really good. Yeah.
Ooh, interesting. We'll link to that in the show notes for this, or the YouTube description.
Oh, good. Yes, do.
Whichever way you're engaging. Yeah.
Well,
that's great.
Speaking of authors, one more I'll mention is I don't know if you guys have read Jonathan Haidt's book, The Anxious Generation, but that is a phenomenal book. For one, it's fascinating and harrowing. But one of the things he talks about that I loved so much that I did not expect when I read this book was he talks about a sense of, and he's talking more collective than individual, but I think this is true both as a culture and as individuals, that we need a sense of wonder, a sense of awe, a connection to nature, and something bigger than us, which is really cool, because at one point he points out, he's actually pointing to a lot of religious practices as kind of the antidote for what's happening in your generation, Mikayla, who grew up on social media. And he's saying that this, and he notes, he's like, I'm an atheist, actually, I should tell you. But he's saying like these communal gatherings, these like purposeful, intentional ways of connecting with each other, connecting with nature, connecting with God or divine or whatever it is that you connect to, is actually a huge antidote to the collective and individual anxiety that we're experiencing.
Yeah, I've had that book recommended to me a bunch of times.
I would highly
recommend it. I need to read it.
Yeah.
Mikayla, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just saying I agree with you. I think my generation growing up on social media has influenced how we see anxiety and how we treat anxiety. Like, specifically, I know that within my friend groups that those words get thrown around willy-nilly. But sometimes when we're hanging out with our friends and we haven't seen each other in a really, really, really long time, we'll talk about everything that we need to talk about, and then we'll spend like 30 minutes on our phones in dead silence, not talking to each other, not doing anything other than like sending each other like silly little memes back and forth until we feel like talking to each other again, which I feel like will diminish like the part of the community that we need, which is like the coming together after the sharing, the community time after the hard part of being like, this was my hard part of my day. This was my hard part of my day. We can do something together now. So me and my friends have started doing stuff that's more intentional without our phones, specifically so that we can all be bonded together. We're a group of adults in our 20s, and we get together in color and watch movies.
Love it.
So it's even something like that, like as small as like getting together with two of your friends and bringing coloring books and coloring together and talking about your day without looking at your phones brings so much more intention to connection, which in my opinion helps decrease my anxiety, because then I'm like, oh, I can make it through the week, no problem. My friends got me. I got my back.
I agree.
Even if it's just a group of two, like that's all you need sometimes, is to have somebody hear those thoughts too. Like as much as I talk about like talking, active listening is equally important.
Yeah.
In that.
Yeah, that's good. Well, one of the things we talked about talking about in this episode, which has kind of naturally come up, is this idea, like, is it worse? Like, is anxiety worse now? Or is it worse for the younger generations coming up now? And there seems to be kind of a general sense that the answer is yes. Reb, in that book, was his answer mostly yes, that it seems to be worse for...
His answer is a resounding yes. And interestingly, I mean, his research, and this is data-driven, is that he is claiming that social media is actually not just correlated to the youth epidemic of depression, anxiety, and suicidality, but he's saying causation. Like, he's actually pointing at social media as a cause, if not the leading cause of the change that he would say that's happened, especially in your generation, Mikayla.
Yeah, and I would say that anecdotally, in my experience in ministry and in working with teens since about 1998, that I agree. I see it. There are, I think, upsides and downsides to social media, like we've talked about in a previous episode, that you can actually learn good, maybe some good coping skills. You can learn that you're not alone in your feelings. And in fact, you may have engaged with this podcast with Tapestry because of social media. So I don't want to like knock it entirely. And whoa, there's another book. I have it. It's not in my possession right now. It's in my office. Shoot, it's by a couple people who Oh, wow. I will link to it in the show notes once I remember what it is, so you can check that out. But basically, they did a kind of a similar and kind of longitudinal, like really big study, especially looking at teenagers. And they found that there are some downsides for sure about screens and screen time, but there are maybe some upsides too. And also, there's like, and now I feel so silly for not being able to like quote it right now. But it doesn't affect everyone the same way, which makes sense because that's true for all of us all the time with everything, right? Like we don't all have the same kind of relationship with food or with exercise or with anything else. And so their research was indicating that for some teens, this kind of screen usage that like certainly for some teenagers, for some adolescents, it's especially dangerous and damaging. Whereas for some others, maybe it's like, maybe not that big a deal.
Yeah.
Kind of like some people can handle themselves around, they can be a casual drinker. And for other people, they cannot have any alcohol, like just can't. So
That would make
I think that's an interesting take on it too.
Yeah.
But I have seen certainly more mental health issues in general among adolescents, and then specifically around anxiety for sure. It's definitely become more of a challenge for a greater percentage of our kids. And I think for some of them, it's not just more kids who are experiencing it, but some of the kids are experiencing it in a much like more devastating way, Definitely. If that makes sense. It's more intense.
Yeah.
I think social media can do both sides of benefits. I agree with you because for my mental health, I have friends who are my very closest friends that I've known for a really long time who have moved states away. Somebody lives on the East Coast, which is like the other side of the country for me. And it helps because when I want their advice or I need their comfort or just want to see their face, their social media page is open for me. I can reach out to them and get an answer back in seconds. It helps me in that way because when I'm missing somebody or I have like a question I want to ask them, I have an experience I want to tell them, I can share it immediately and I can get an immediate response back and not feel like that distance is so far. Yeah. But at the same time, I totally understand why anxiety is worse in my generation. And I agree that it is because of social media. Kids who are given, in my opinion, because this is what I've seen out of my peers and myself, but kids that are given social media too early tend to have like self-esteem issues, which will travel into adulthood. I've seen it in all of my friends that like somebody will post something about like some fad right now or some like buzzword that's going around about like a part of your body, like your arms or your thighs or your stomach or something like that.
Yeah.
And I hear my friends start saying like, oh, I have this thing on my body when I'm like, you guys are gorgeous. I've never seen a flaw on them before until they say something to me. And even then I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about because I don't see anything there. But because of social media, they now see something that is not there or not real or I don't want to say not real, but like at least not as large of a concern as what they're making it seem to themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Comparison. I think we've talked about this a little bit on the podcast before about social media and the internet in general and comparison. And I think it's really important to recognize that the thing you're comparing yourself to is not real, or at least it's an incomplete representation of reality. That you are maybe seeing what seems like the greener grass on the other side is painted, right? It's not real grass, or it's only the best grass and there's a dead spot just beyond the camera. And we all tend to show kind of the best parts of ourselves, and that's natural and normal and maybe even healthy in some ways. But when we don't share kind of the real us with anyone, then that can be really bad. And if you don't have somebody, that can be also pretty anxiety inducing. Mm-hmm. So maybe you've been listening and you've been hearing that one of our solutions is hanging out with friends, and you feel like but I don't have any. You're not alone in that either. There are a lot of people who feel very isolated and very alone. And if it seems like we're knocking social media or the internet, that could be one place where you find people who are like-minded or who you can be friends with, even if you're not in the same geographical location. And so I think that can actually be a very good thing.
Definitely.
Totally. I know so many friends of mine who have met friends through like video game lobbies who've ended up being like best friends or gone to each other's weddings and stuff like that. That kind of stuff is so special about social media. But I think it's important to recognize that the people that you're seeing on social media, like that's their best selves all the time. That's their whole feed is curated to be the best of them, to serve you like the prettiest picture of them on a platter. Like that's the whole point of social media, which can be good to like want to push yourselves to be better, or like if there's a goal that you have in mind and you see somebody else on social media achieving that goal, it can be a great way to motivate yourself. But don't start comparison with those people, because you're not those people. You don't have their resources and you don't know what their life looks like when the camera's off. Like that is something I also think has really affected my generation in anxieties, because we grew up watching YouTubers and other content creators, and we had those people also kind of influence us in the ways that like peers or teachers or trusted adults would in your life, because you hear the same person every single week give you their opinions and you're like, oh, well, I agree with these things and you're making me laugh and I want to follow what you think and what you do. Like that kind of stuff can be helpful, but also detrimental. Like you have to just make sure that you're not, I say you, but you know, there's a fine line between comparing yourself to people and just wanting to get to that next step so you can achieve a goal similar to that person. And I totally sound like a social media hater on this podcast. That's because I grew up with it. And so to some degree, I can see all of the bad sides because I've seen it throughout my life. Like I've watched computers get better, but also seen people get worse on the internet as I get older.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think one of the really big dangers about comparison is that if you think that, you know, somebody is either better than you or you want their life, that one of the problems is like, Mikayla, you are you. I don't need to be you. We already have a Mikayla, right? Mikayla, you don't need to be Reb.
Right.
Even though Reb is amazing, like we already have a Reb. We need Mikayla. We need you to be you. We need Mike to be Mike, because we don't have another one, right? You need to be you. So you don't need to compare yourself to somebody else. Like if somebody inspires you to do something amazing, that's one thing. But if you feel like you ought to be someone else, no, you are made to be you. And it is so important. We need you to be you. The world needs you to be you.
When you say that, I always think of the story of, this isn't a story, actually. This is probably an Instagram post is where I saw this. I'm not going to lie. But it was a picture of God looking at, you know, you in essence saying, why would you call what I made ugly? I made you to look like me. I made you in my image. I wanted you to be you because I think you are beautiful and perfect the way that you are. And it took a long time of that sitting with me to finally realize that God saying to me, like, why would you call what I made you ugly? Like that makes me a little sad too. Like I don't want to compare myself to anybody else because God made me to be me, not to be you, not to be, I don't know, Joe down the street. He didn't make me to be anybody else. He made me to be me and to fit into his puzzle piece on this earth. And you, listener, are special.
You are. That might be a good kind of transition into talking about some spiritual practices that might help. We've kind of touched on it a little bit. And again, listener, this isn't to say that these are the only things that can help. But for me, one of the things that has helped is prayer. And you mentioned, I think before, like, Mikayla, like giving it to God, right? And maybe you hear people in faith communities say like, well, you just got to give it to God. And I have found that actually that can help. I've actually recently, I was anxious about some things, and I was like, okay, I can't do anything about this myself. There's nothing I can do. And so I just imagined taking that thing and placing it in the hands of Jesus. And I found that that was a relief in the moment. And then around 30 to 90 seconds later, I found myself holding it again. And I had to say, oh, yes, that's right. I'm going to give this back to you, God. Please hold it for me because I can't right now. And like physically, and like I would do the thing with my hands. And imagine myself giving this thing away. And it may be minute by minute, maybe it becomes hour by hour, maybe it becomes just day by day that you found that you've woken up and you've started to hold on to that thing again. That's one spiritual practice that has helped me, is kind of letting go of the thing and opening my hands and saying, I can't control this, and so I won't try, and I'm going to give it to you. And for my word for that you is God. For others listening, maybe it's, I don't know, universe or divine being or whatever. But yeah, that's one spiritual practice. How about you guys? Do you have anything that's helped for you?
Yes, tons. But for me, I think meditation, and that word may resonate with some people and not so much with others, but meditation is a spiritual practice that comes from lots of different spiritual and faith traditions. And meditation also has as many different flavors as there are at Ben and Jerry's, I'm sure, or more. But they're really, for me, meditation has been a huge, huge part of like calming my mind. And even just that practice, and whether it is like a direct connection of like trying to connect with the divine or a higher power, whatever that is for you, or it can be as simple as just trying to like eliminate the wild thoughts in your head. Like one of the exercises I teach my clients is kind of like, you can take this visualization of your thoughts when they come up, because they will, that you can take that thought and kind of place it on a little boat and let it float down a river, and even just that practice of like kind of, and I think of it a lot like exercise, which may sound cool or not cool to you, but like it really is like exercise for your brain. It's like training your brain, because what that helps me is when I can do that on a daily basis, it's strengthening my brain muscles to be able, when I have anxious thoughts, to be able to go, oh, these are just thoughts. Like, and I can put them on a little boat, and no matter how many times I have to do that, like per minute or per hour, or per day, that is available to me as, a resource. And just for me personally, it is a spiritual practice, because I do connect with the divine in my meditation. And it does help me just to even have that remembrance of like, oh, in my perspective, there is something out there that is bigger and greater than me. And to be able to put some level of connection between me and that source, and also like to remind me and my brain, oh, I'm not the one who has to carry everything. Just like what you're saying. It's like, I'm not in this alone.
Totally. I think this is cute. We all do the same thing in some different contexts, and I just realized that. For the viewers, or for the listeners, sorry, I have a tattoo of the name Jesus on my wrist, and I use that as my little tool for when I'm feeling anxious about an event or something like that. I'll take the feeling right out of my chest or wherever I feel it in my body. I'll hold it like this, and I'll toss it straight up to him. Because I take that emotion and that feeling, because I don't like the physical aspect of how it makes me feel, and I just throw it away. I throw it out and away from me. And usually it's up to God, because he's the one who's taking that from me anyways, physically for me. And also when I say, like, when I didn't understand like how to give it to God, because that's how I do it now, nobody gave me context to that when I was a kid. And I think that if I had been given like tools, like sometimes you can just take the thought, hold it in your hands and throw it up into the air. And that's now with God. That would have been worlds more helpful than just saying the words, just give it to God, to me, because I didn't know what to do with that at like 7 years old.
Yeah.
So like having a physical act to throw away the emotion or the thought or whatever. I'm moving cat hair like crazy right now. Um, but to get rid of like that thought and to use like your hands and stuff, it's very mind to body, mind to hand connection of like, okay, this thing is physically getting taken away from me by me to something else. And then something else I also do with God, if we can't tell, I like to talk a lot. I like to talk to him a lot. And I talk to him like I'm on a phone call throughout my day. And I tell him just about the events of my day. I tell him how I'm feeling about my day. I tell him, even if I'm in traffic and the person in front of me is aggravating me, I'm like, this person in front of me is aggravating me, God. Like, do you see this? But it really helps me feel not so alone because I'm talking to him like he's sitting in the car with me. Like he has a seatbelt on and we're all both going to get coffee for the day or something like that. But just talking to him like it's a constant stream of like talking to somebody else sitting in the car physically with me has helped me so much. And it gives me the relief of knowing that he knows what's going on in my life. Even though I know he does already, like getting to tell him feels so much better than just like sitting there silently, for me at least, and just telling him all that through my head. I like to share it out loud.
That's good. Yeah. Another one for me is, I mentioned this like nighttime routine. It involves kind of like a movement and prayer. And so if you can, for me, kind of attaching kind of like, I used to resist the idea of like a ritual kind of prayer, a ritualized kind of thing. I always felt it should be very extemporaneous and just kind of raw and just whatever's happening in the moment. And in my older age, not that I'm old, having something that's like a routine about it. That's like this, okay, I say these words and I make this movement and this is part of my connection to God, is very calming and helps me to refocus and feel much more centered. Yeah.
I think prayer could also be considered a form of meditation if we think about that in itself. Like if you just quieting your mind and sitting with God for a couple minutes is a form of meditation because you are just trying to listen to him and what he has to say. So in order to do that, your mind has to be pretty much dead silent, which for some people, not saying names, me, it's hard for me to get my mind that quiet sometimes. So getting to talk to him about my day and like sharing all of that, pretty much like word vomiting it out at him and wrapping it up with a nice little amen at the end and saying thank you to him for listening to me, that's my ritual part of it to him. It's like, I love talking to him. I talk to him every single day. I talk to him while I'm on my way to work. I talk to him as soon as I get home. I talk to him while I'm doing something that I really don't want to do. Like after this, I got to go take my cat's cat litter out and we're going to be having a conversation the whole time I'm outside, taking his litter out to the dumpster. So just like those kinds of things can really help, I think, just to relieve that anxiety and bring anxiety and give it to God.
That's good, guys. Well, I'd love to hear from our listeners, our viewers, about what's helped for you, whether it's kind of a more secular kind of practice or a spiritual practice that has helped you with your anxiety. I'd love to be able to share that with each other because, like Mikayla said earlier, you can get more value out of therapy when you guys all talk about what your therapist said. So that's fantastic. We can be that for each other in our Tapestry community. So I'd love to hear from you guys. And I think it's a good place to wrap up this episode. And this is the last part, part 3 of our series on anxiety. So thanks for coming along on this journey with us. And we will see you next time. So
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
The Tapestry podcast is produced by Stephen Bailey. Original music was scored by Taylor Martin. Special thanks to Lauren Richmond Jr. and Resonate Media. You can learn more about Tapestry and join the conversation on our Discord channel at tapestrytalk.org. Thanks for joining us.